I think the Final Fantasy IX Remake has a chance to change everything for Square Enix. There's been a lot of buzz lately about the series potentially returning to its turn-based roots for the next mainline entry, and honestly, in my opinion, it's one of the most divisive topics in the community right now. But I feel like there's a way to strike a balance that could satisfy fans on both sides, and we're already seeing a company right now pull off a portion of the plan we're going to discuss. Before we get into that though, let's address the elephant in the room. Is the Final Fantasy IX Remake even still happening? The Final Fantasy IX Remake was thought to be one of the worst kept secrets, but with how these last few weeks have played out, it's starting to shake some people's confidence within its existence. Now, the source of the rumor that the Final Fantasy IX Remake could be cancelled stems from this post by Nate the Hate, where he says, "As of last check, it remains in development to my knowledge, but I need to do a fresh check and see what a more current status is, as I did hear a month or so ago that it was in trouble and possibly cancelled. I only had one source on the cancellation possibilities, and I need to verify the info further." Now, when you combine that with how the 25th anniversary went, there was a ton of build-up where they were showing merch, doing tons of posts, doing promos, and a lot of build-up for the exact 25th anniversary, which was July 7th, and many thought like that entire build-up that we've been getting the past few months, where Square Enix has been talking about the game nonstop and kind of bringing life back into the franchise, was going to lead up to an announcement July 7th. And so when that didn't happen, and they kind of just posted a video and kept it pushing, it really felt like they missed the perfect opportunity to give an announcement for the game. Now, maybe this was recalled due to internal planning, or who knows why or what happened with it. I think it's still coming. I think they probably just had to delay it and didn't feel any hesitancy with delaying it because they actually hadn't ever officially announced it. We only know about it due to that Nvidia leak. If you haven't already, I really would appreciate it if you help me get this video to 50 likes and consider subscribing to the channel. But let's hop into the next segment. Now let's talk about how a Final Fantasy IX Remake could really change everything for Square Enix and the Final Fantasy franchise. With the recent success, we've saw tons of interest in turn-based games where many said that it was dying, and in reality, it's actually thriving more than ever. We have Baldur's Gate 3 selling roughly around 15 million copies, Metaphor ReFantazio, a new IP from Atlus, selling 2 million copies, and then Expedition 33 on track to do the same amount of numbers as Metaphor ReFantazio, and honestly, in my opinion, it's probably going to do a lot more. So I feel like the fear that the demand for a turn-based Final Fantasy isn't there really can just be thrown away, because the demand is clearly there with the success of all these turn-based games. And what I really think Square Enix should do is look to what Atlus is doing and follow the Atlus model. Instead of having so much pressure to constantly deliver a new mainline game, give us a Final Fantasy VII dancing game. I said it. I want to see Cloud twerking. I want to see Zack pop locking and dropping it. All right. What I really mean though is they're not, it seems like putting a lot, like we're not getting Persona 6 till fucking 2028. It's not coming. They're focusing on remaking all of their older titles, but I feel like they're doing this to, one, modernize those experiences that they've already built cult classics with, two, reintroduce them to a new audience, and three, kind of R&D and test different things with Persona 3 Remake and Persona 4 Revival before they have all the pressure to deliver with Persona 6. They're kind of riding on the high of all the Persona franchise, and if Persona 6 comes and flops, that kind of takes away from that high. But instead, you take the pressure by just focusing on different remakes. I know fans don't like it as much just because everyone wants Persona 6. It's been about 10 years now, but it's clearly working when you have Persona 3 Reload selling 1 million copies. I believe that was in its first week, and that was the first Atlus game to do it. So clearly it's doing something right, and they can start to like tweak and test different things. And so this is how that, in my opinion, would relate to what I think Square Enix should do with Final Fantasy. Use the Final Fantasy IX Remake to R&D and kind of test how you think modern turn-based JRPGs should look. Instead of just giving us the exact same combat that we had in the original, try something different, put a twist on it, or incorporate some of the QTEs like we got with Expedition 33. No one can say you're biting off of them. So do something and test it out with this particular remake before you take the risk and all the budget and all the investing of doing it with the mainline title. One, a turn-based JRPG is going to be significantly cheaper to make than an action-based JRPG, and you can start building off of those systems to start to reestablish the identity of Final Fantasy turn-based combat. With each mainline FF, I feel like there's a ton of pressure to kind of reinvent the wheel to design this entirely new combat system that revolves around the story that they are trying to tell, and I feel like that's a self-imposed pressure, and I feel like if you were to focus on turn-based combat with these remakes, and instead focusing on building upon it with each remake or each new installment, as opposed to constantly having to change everything, you can really start to lock in and continue to move and push the genre forward like you had been doing in the past with each new installment. When you look at Persona 3 to Persona 4 to Persona 5, they're not changing a crazy amount of features. They're just doing different things to make the experience better and streamline it to make it quicker and adapt to customer expectations. And then we see that pushed even further with Metaphor ReFantazio, where you can switch between action-based combat and then go into turn-based command battles. I feel like this exact framework is just there for the taking with Square Enix. A remake could be much cheaper and probably much quicker to develop if you were to remove that. You know the game is gonna sell like hotcakes. People have been begging for it, they want it, they're fiending for it, and that's not just isolated to FF9. If you really wanted to continue doing this and please this turn-based fan base and invoke on that nostalgia with them, while also reintroducing new fans like myself, I've never played Final Fantasy IX. I'm holding off until the remake is announced, and if it's not within the next few years, I'm just gonna play it. But you're gonna be introducing and grabbing those new fans, like I said, like myself. If you feel like you still need to do more testing before you're ready to commit to a mainline entry, FF10, FF8. I know, you could really just go on a remake spree like Atlas has, but it's worked for them. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop producing mainline titles like you have been. You can continue pursuing that action-based route. But if you do these remakes, you're also going to be able to please that turn-based audience that is fiending for a new turn-based JRPG in the Final Fantasy like realm with the Final Fantasy budget and the Final Fantasy storytelling. I feel like a lot of the other turn-based JRPGs from Square Enix haven't had the type of graphics and budgeting that we see with Final Fantasy, and I think that's what a lot of fans, myself included, really want to see. And then it doesn't always have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be action-based or turn-based. They can continue progressing the action-based with the mainline entries, and then maybe do a spin-off like Shin Megami Tensei, or just two branching paths like Atelier. Atelier has Atelier Yumiya, where they're trying different things. They're trying action-based combat and trying to push what they think is what new fans want, but still having the other franchise running simultaneously called like Atelier Resolariana or some crap like that, where they're giving their traditional fans what they want and following the more traditional Atelier route. One has turn-based combat and the other has action-based. And I feel like that exact same thing could apply with FF, and like they did with Final Fantasy Tactics, where they made a tactical JRPG, but still used Final Fantasy in the name to pull on that brand equity. And I mean, they've done this like with Strangers of Paradise when they were trying to break into the Souls-like genre. Like, they've done this in the past before, and I know that it's easier said than done. Now, I'm just some random bum on the internet who has a microphone and a camera, so my opinion probably doesn't matter, but I really think Final Fantasy IX has a chance to change everything if they get it right and fans show up how we expect them to when they finally give us a new Final Fantasy game with turn-based combat. That's going to conclude my thoughts on this subject, but I'm curious to hear yours in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, but thank you for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.